The Courage to Begin. How Taking One Step Can Change Everything. Written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. Introduction. Imagine standing on the edge of a cliff, looking out over a vast horizon of possibility. Beneath your feet lies the narrowest of paths, the first step toward everything you've ever wanted. Yet something holds you back. You hesitate, caught in the space between fear and action. Why is it that one small step can feel so impossibly difficult? Here's a truth that might surprise you: the difference between those who succeed and those who don't is rarely talent or resources, it's the courage to begin. In the next few minutes, you'll discover why that first step matters more than you think. This isn't just another self-help book. The Courage to Begin unveils the hidden forces that keep you stuck: perfectionism, fear of failure, and the myth that you need everything in place before you start. But here's the secret: waiting for the perfect moment is a trap. The true path to success is paved with imperfect beginnings. By the time you finish this book, you'll know how to bypass those obstacles and unlock the power of small, consistent actions. You'll learn how to start, regardless of where you are or what you think you lack, and why even the messiest start can lead to remarkable transformation. You've probably felt the frustration of wanting to change, wanting to move forward, yet somehow remaining stuck. Perhaps you've told yourself, "I'll start when I'm ready." But what if you're ready now? What if the courage to take that first step has been within you all along, waiting for permission? I'm here to tell you, you don't need permission. You don't need everything figured out. All you need is the willingness to start, and in doing so, you'll discover the strength that's been waiting inside you. This book isn't just about achieving a specific goal, it's about reclaiming the power to choose your future. Whether you're an entrepreneur waiting to launch, an artist ready to create, or someone simply looking for a way out of indecision, this book holds the keys to unlock the potential you've been sitting on for far too long. Together, we'll explore the tools, mindset shifts, and strategies that will turn your ideas into reality step by step. You'll discover how to push past fear, start without perfection, and stay committed even when the road gets rough. You're not just about to read a book, you're about to unlock a blueprint for action. As the great philosopher Lao Tzu once said, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The path to greatness is already beneath your feet. The only question left is, will you take that step?" We've observed that 65% of our viewers haven't yet subscribed to our channel. We invite you to support us by clicking the subscribe button and liking this video and comment below. Your encouragement inspires us to continue creating valuable content for you. Thank you for being a part of our community and fueling our passion for sharing insights and knowledge. It's time to make that decision. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Perfection. Perfectionism, the word itself sounds noble, almost aspirational. We've been conditioned to believe that striving for perfection is a virtue, that being meticulous and detail-oriented is the only path to success. But here's the harsh truth: perfection is the enemy of progress. Perfectionism traps you in a cycle of endless preparation and overthinking. It convinces you that you're never quite ready to start. So why do so many of us cling to this illusion? Because perfectionism, at its core, is a defense mechanism. It's a way to avoid the discomfort of failure, judgment, and uncertainty. When you aim for perfection, you tell yourself that the right moment will come, and until then, you can keep waiting, safe in your inaction. But the reality is, perfection doesn't exist, and the longer you wait for everything to line up perfectly, the further you drift from actually achieving your goals. Why perfectionism is holding you back. Think about this: every major success, every groundbreaking invention, every piece of art that has touched millions of lives started with imperfection. The first draft was rough, the first attempt was clumsy, and the initial steps were uncertain. But here's the difference: they started. They didn't wait until they had everything figured out. They embraced the mess, the mistakes, and the learning curve. And that's where real progress happens. Perfectionism is like standing at the edge of a swimming pool, endlessly checking the temperature of the water but never diving in. Sure, you're not getting wet, but you're also not experiencing the swim. The key to breaking free from the paralysis of perfectionism is to take that first, imperfect step. Let's look at the story of Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. When she started her company, she had no experience in fashion design or manufacturing. She didn't wait until she had a perfect business plan or flawless prototypes. She simply had an idea and started experimenting. Her first product wasn't perfect. In fact, she faced countless rejections from manufacturers. But because she didn't let the fear of imperfection hold her back, Spanx is now a billion-dollar brand. The lesson here? You don't need to have all the answers before you begin. In fact, most people who've achieved great things started without knowing exactly how they would get there. They allowed themselves to make mistakes, learn along the way, and adjust course as needed. Perfectionism would have killed their dreams before they even started. So, how do you stop perfectionism from keeping you stuck? It starts with changing your mindset. You need to redefine what success looks like. Instead of seeing success as flawless execution, view it as progress, no matter how small. Each step forward, no matter how imperfect, is a victory. Here's a simple exercise. Think of one thing you've been putting off because you don't feel ready. Maybe it's starting a side project, launching a YouTube channel, or even applying for a new job. Now, imagine what would happen if, instead of waiting for the perfect conditions, you just started. What would the first step look like? What would it feel like to take action, even if you didn't have all the pieces in place? Now, commit to taking that step today. Don't worry about doing it perfectly, just do it. The beauty of starting is that once you take that first action, momentum begins to build. The more you do, the more confident you become, and the closer you get to achieving your goal. Perfection isn't the goal, progress is. The sooner you let go of perfection, the sooner you'll realize that progress, no matter how messy or awkward, is what really matters. Think about the content you consume on YouTube. The videos that go viral aren't necessarily the ones with the highest production quality, they're the ones that resonate, that are relatable, and that take action in the moment. People don't connect with perfection, they connect with authenticity, and authenticity comes from starting, from showing the real process, the ups and downs, the failures and wins. When you allow yourself to be imperfect, you allow yourself to be real. And that's where true growth happens. Perfectionism will always try to lure you into the comfort of waiting. It will whisper that you need more time, more resources, more skills before you can take that leap. But here's the truth, you don't. You have everything you need right now to start. Don't wait for perfection, it will never come. Instead, aim for progress, no matter how small, and watch how your momentum builds. The first step is the hardest, but it's also the most important. Once you take that leap, the path will reveal itself as you go. So, whatever it is you've been holding back on, stop waiting, just start. Chapter 2. The Fear Factor. Fear. It's the invisible force that keeps us stuck, quietly whispering, "What if you fail?" Or "What will people think?" For many, fear is the single biggest obstacle to starting anything. It comes in many forms: fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown, but its goal is always the same: to keep you in a state of inaction. What if I told you that fear isn't something to avoid but something to embrace? That fear is actually a sign that you're about to step into growth. The key isn't eliminating fear, because that's impossible, but learning how to move forward in spite of it. The greatest achievers in history didn't wait for fear to go away. They acted in the presence of fear, and so can you. Why fear paralyzes us. Fear is hardwired into our brains as a survival mechanism. Thousands of years ago, fear helped our ancestors avoid danger, alerting them to threats like predators. Today we rarely face those kinds of threats, but our brains haven't evolved much since then. Now, fear warns us about things that aren't life-threatening, like public speaking, taking a risk, or putting ourselves out there, but our bodies still react as if we're facing a predator in the wild. The problem is that while fear kept us alive back then, it now holds us back. It tells us that failure is dangerous, when in reality, failure is one of the most powerful learning tools available. Fear tells us that other people's opinions could destroy us, when the truth is, they're usually too focused on their own lives to care much about ours. Once we understand that fear is a false alarm, we can start taking control of our decisions instead of letting fear control us. Let's break down one of the most common fears, the fear of failure. Why are we so afraid of not succeeding? The root of this fear is often tied to our sense of self-worth. We believe that if we fail at something, it means we're inadequate, and this failure will define us. But here's the truth: failure doesn't define you. How you respond to failure does. Take Thomas Edison, for example. When asked about his 1,000 unsuccessful attempts to invent the light bulb, he famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 1,000 ways that won't work." Edison didn't let failure stop him, he used it as feedback, each failure getting him closer to success. What if Edison had let fear win after his first few failed attempts? The world would look very different today. Failure is simply part of the process of growth. If you're not failing, you're not pushing yourself enough. When you can start seeing failure as feedback, rather than a reflection of your worth, fear loses its power. The fear of judgment is another powerful obstacle. We fear what others will think if we try something new and fall short. But here's a liberating truth: most people are too caught up in their own lives to care. Think about how often you dwell on someone else's mistakes. Rarely, right? We're all too busy worrying about our own lives, which means the judgment we fear from others is largely imagined. Even when people do notice our failures or shortcomings, their opinions don't define us. In fact, the people whose opinions we fear are often the ones who are too afraid to take action themselves. Don't let their fear become your limitation. Let me tell you a quick story. Brené Brown, the acclaimed researcher and author, gave a TED Talk on vulnerability that was deeply personal. Before the talk went viral, she had severe anxiety about opening up to such a large audience. But she chose to be vulnerable anyway, despite her fear of judgment. That talk went on to resonate with millions of people, not because it was perfect, but because it was real. Fear of judgment will always be there, but by showing up authentically, you will attract people who connect with your message, and their opinions are the ones that matter. The final fear we'll cover is the fear of the unknown. This fear thrives on uncertainty, and it can be one of the most paralyzing because it's tied to a lack of control. But the reality is, we can't control the future, and waiting for certainty before taking action is a recipe for stagnation. Look at any major life decision: starting a new job, moving to a new city, launching a new business. You never have all the answers at the beginning. That's part of the journey. The key is to start, knowing that you'll learn and adapt as you go. Uncertainty is where growth happens, and when you embrace it, the fear of the unknown transforms into excitement for what's possible. Consider Jeff Bezos when he launched Amazon. He had no guarantee it would succeed, and in fact, most people told him it wouldn't. But he started anyway, embracing the unknown. Now, Amazon is one of the largest companies in the world. Had he waited for certainty, he might still be sitting in a Wall Street office, wondering what if. The goal isn't to eliminate fear, it's to use it as a tool for growth. Fear shows up when you're about to step outside your comfort zone, which is exactly where transformation happens. The next time fear pops up, instead of asking, "What if I fail?" ask yourself, "What's the worst that could happen? And what's the best that could happen?" Often the worst-case scenario is manageable, and the best-case scenario is life-changing. But you'll never know unless you take the leap. Here's an exercise to put this into practice. Identify one fear that's been holding you back. Write it down. Now, next to that fear, write the worst thing that could happen if you face it. Then, write the best thing that could happen. Seeing both outcomes on paper will help you realize that the worst case is rarely as bad as your mind makes it out to be, and the best case is often far more rewarding than staying stuck in fear. Fear is a natural part of the journey, but it doesn't have to be the thing that stops you. You have the power to move forward in the face of fear, and when you do, you'll realize that the things you were afraid of weren't as scary as they seemed. The only way to overcome fear is to take action. So whatever fear is holding you back, face it head on. Just start. Chapter 3. Momentum over motivation. There's a common misconception that in order to start something new or keep going with a project, you need to feel motivated. But here's the truth: motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes, often at the most inconvenient times. Waiting for motivation is like waiting for lightning to strike. You have no control over when it happens. What you can control, however, is momentum. Momentum is built through action, even when you don't feel like it. Once you start moving, motivation often follows. This chapter is about shifting your mindset from relying on bursts of motivation to creating steady, unstoppable momentum. The key to lasting success isn't waiting to feel inspired, it's starting, no matter what. Let's start by debunking one of the most widespread myths about success: the belief that successful people are constantly motivated. This is simply not true. Even the most accomplished individuals don't wake up every day bursting with motivation. In fact, many admit to having days where they don't feel like doing anything at all. The difference between them and those who stay stuck: they act anyway. Motivation is often romanticized in social media posts and self-help books, but the reality is, it's unreliable. You might feel inspired after listening to a motivational speech or reading a book, but that feeling fades quickly when faced with real-world challenges. Relying on motivation alone will leave you stuck in the stop cycle of progress, always waiting for the right moment to feel energized. Why momentum is more powerful. Momentum, on the other hand, is different. Once you start, even with the smallest action, you begin to build momentum. And the beauty of momentum is that it's self-sustaining. The more you do, the easier it becomes to keep going. This is why starting is so important. It creates the energy and drive to continue. Think of it like riding a bike. The hardest part is the initial push, getting those wheels turning, but once you're moving, it takes much less effort to keep the bike in motion. This is the same with any project or goal. That first step is difficult, but it creates a chain reaction that makes the next step easier, and the one after that even easier. Comedian Jerry Seinfeld is a great example of someone who understands the power of momentum. Early in his career, he developed a simple system to ensure he would keep writing jokes every day, even when he didn't feel motivated. He called it the "don't break the chain" method. Seinfeld bought a large wall calendar and a red marker. Every day that he wrote new material, he would put a big red X on that day. After a few days, a chain of excess began to form. The goal? Don't break the chain. Even on days when he didn't feel like writing, he would push through because he didn't want to see a gap in the chain. It wasn't about feeling inspired every day, it was about creating momentum through consistent action. The lesson here is clear. Building momentum doesn't require huge leaps forward. Small, consistent actions add up, and over time, they lead to big results. How to build momentum in your own life. Now that we understand the power of momentum, let's talk about how you can apply this principle to your own life. The first step is identifying what small, repeatable actions you can take to start building momentum. These actions don't have to be grand or overwhelming. In fact, it's better if they're not. The simpler and more consistent the action, the easier it will be to maintain. Here's an example. Let's say you want to start a YouTube channel, but the idea of creating full-length videos seems daunting. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment of inspiration, start small. Maybe your first step is scripting a video or recording just a few minutes of content. The next day, build on that momentum by editing a small section. Before you know it, you've created a habit of taking small steps, and the task that once seemed overwhelming becomes manageable. The secret to momentum is that it thrives on consistency, not intensity. Taking small steps every day creates a snowball effect. The more progress you make, the more progress you'll want to continue making. One of the biggest mistakes people make is waiting for inspiration to strike before they act. This is a backwards approach. Action should come first and inspiration will follow. There's a well-known quote by author William Faulkner: "I only write when I am inspired." Fortunately, I am inspired at 9 a.m. every morning. Faulkner wasn't saying he felt inspired every day at 9 a.m. He was saying that he sat down to write every day at 9 a.m., regardless of how he felt, and through that action, inspiration would eventually show up. This is the mentality you need to adopt. Don't wait for inspiration, create it through action. The more you act, the more your brain will associate that activity with progress, and the easier it will become to continue. Building momentum doesn't mean you won't face challenges or setbacks along the way. You will. The key is not letting these setbacks derail your progress. Instead of seeing them as reasons to quit, view them as part of the journey. The most successful people understand that setbacks are not signs to stop, they're simply moments to pause, reflect, and adjust. Remember, momentum isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. When you hit a roadblock, take a moment to reassess, then continue forward. Even a small action, like revisiting your goals or making a tiny adjustment to your plan, keeps the momentum alive. The worst thing you can do is stop completely. Think of one goal or project you've been putting off because you're waiting for the right motivation. What's the smallest possible step you can take to start building momentum today? Maybe it's writing the first sentence of that book you want to write. Maybe it's spending 5 minutes learning a new skill. Whatever it is, take that first step today. Once you've taken that step, commit to taking another small step tomorrow, and the next day. Track your progress like Seinfeld did with his "don't break the chain" method. Create a visual reminder that will push you to keep going, even on the days you don't feel like it. Momentum will take care of the rest. Motivation may come and go, but momentum is something you can create and control. By focusing on small, consistent actions, you'll build a steady rhythm that carries you forward, even when motivation fades. The secret to success isn't waiting for inspiration. It's starting, and then continuing, no matter what. So, don't wait for motivation to strike. Just start. Chapter 4. Embracing failure as feedback. Failure. It's a word that strikes fear into the hearts of many. We've been conditioned to see failure as the ultimate setback, a reflection of our worth and abilities. But what if I told you that failure isn't the end, but a critical part of the journey? What if failure was actually one of your greatest teachers? In this chapter, we're going to flip the script on failure. Instead of seeing it as something to avoid at all costs, you'll learn how to embrace it as valuable feedback, a necessary ingredient for growth and success. The truth is, no one has ever achieved anything remarkable without failing along the way. The difference lies in how they responded to those failures. At the core of most people's hesitation to start something new is the fear of failure. The idea that things won't go as planned, that we'll be judged, or that our efforts will be wasted keeps many of us in a state of inaction. But here's the thing, failure is inevitable. No one gets it right the first time, whether it's launching a business, creating content, or pursuing a personal goal. The people who succeed aren't the ones who never fail, but the ones who learn to recover quickly, adjust, and keep moving forward. Failure is a natural part of the learning process. It's how we gather data, adjust our strategies, and ultimately improve. When we stop viewing failure as a reflection of our abilities and start seeing it as feedback, we unlock the power to keep pushing forward without fear. Let's revisit the story of Thomas Edison, the inventor of the modern light bulb. Edison is often celebrated for his persistence, having famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Imagine the determination it takes to continue after 10,000 failed attempts. Most of us would give up after the first few, deciding that it wasn't meant to be. But for Edison, each failure wasn't a reason to stop, it was valuable information. Every failed attempt brought him closer to the solution. He didn't see failure as a dead end, but as feedback on what didn't work, allowing him to refine his approach. His mindset transformed failure into progress. This story serves as a powerful reminder that failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of the process. Failure as a learning tool. When you start viewing failure as feedback, everything changes. Instead of being paralyzed by the fear of what could go wrong, you become curious about what each failure can teach you. Failure offers clues on what to do differently next time. It helps you refine your approach, sharpen your skills, and adjust your strategies. Consider failure as a scientist would an experiment. When an experiment doesn't yield the expected result, scientists don't see it as a failure. Instead, they examine the data, tweak their approach, and try again. Each failure brings them closer to the right answer. You can approach your goals the same way, by treating failures as data points rather than reflections of your self-worth. The key to overcoming the fear of failure is reframing how you see it. Instead of viewing failure as something negative, start recognizing it as a stepping stone. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this experience? What didn't work, and why? What will I do differently next time? This shift in mindset will help you bounce back from setbacks more quickly. When failure isn't something to fear but a part of the journey, you'll be more willing to take risks, try new things, and keep pushing forward. This approach has been embraced by some of the most successful people in the world. Take Oprah Winfrey, for example. Early in her career, Oprah was fired from her first television job as a news anchor, told she was unfit for TV. Instead of letting this failure define her, she learned from it, refined her approach, and went on to become one of the most successful media moguls in history. Her willingness to embrace failure as feedback set the stage for her incredible achievements. One of the most damaging beliefs about failure is the idea that it's permanent. Many people think that if they fail once, they'll always be a failure. But nothing could be further from the truth. Failure is temporary. It's a moment in time, not a label that defines you forever. The most successful people don't let failure stick. They brush it off, learn from it, and keep going. Think of failure as a bruise, not a tattoo. It may sting for a while, but it fades as you move forward. Here's an important mindset shift. The only true failure is quitting. As long as you keep going, every setback is just part of your progress. Failure only becomes permanent when you stop trying. Now let's turn theory into practice. Here's an exercise to help you reframe failure and use it as a tool for growth. 1. Identify a recent failure. Think of a time when something didn't go as planned. It could be big or small, a project that didn't work out, a goal you didn't achieve, or even a conversation that didn't go the way you hoped. 2. Analyze what happened. Break down the situation. What went wrong? What factors contributed to the failure? Were there any external circumstances, or were there things you could have controlled differently? 3. Extract the lesson. What can you learn from this failure? What feedback is it giving you? Is there something you would do differently next time? This is where the real growth happens. 4. Apply the lesson. Use what you've learned to adjust your approach moving forward. This is how failure transforms into success. It becomes the guide for your next step. By completing this exercise regularly, you'll start to view failure as an essential part of growth, rather than something to fear or avoid. Failure isn't a dead end, it's a detour, a necessary part of the journey towards success. When you embrace failure as feedback, you strip it of its power to hold you back. Every setback becomes an opportunity to learn, refine, and improve. The more comfortable you become with failure, the more progress you'll make. So the next time you're faced with the possibility of failure, don't hesitate, just start. Fail fast, learn faster, and keep moving forward. Chapter 5. Small Steps, Big Wins. When we think about achieving big goals, it's easy to get overwhelmed. The finish line can feel so far away, and the path to get there often seems impossibly long and complicated. But here's a secret that successful people know. The key to accomplishing big things isn't making giant leaps, it's taking small, consistent steps. In this chapter, we're going to explore the power of small steps and how they lead to big wins over time. By focusing on incremental progress, you'll not only reduce overwhelm but also build momentum that carries you forward. The magic of small steps is that they are easy to take, and yet, when compounded over time, they can lead to extraordinary results. Why small steps matter? There's a reason people often fail to stick with their goals. They set their sights too high too quickly. They try to overhaul their entire life in one grand gesture, starting a strict new diet, launching a business, or running a marathon without any preparation. But after a few days or weeks, the enormity of the task becomes too much, and they give up, convinced they weren't cut out for it. But success isn't about giant leaps. It's about small, consistent actions that add up over time. Each small step brings you a little closer to your goal, and because these steps are manageable, you're far more likely to stick with them. There's a concept in psychology known as the compound effect, which describes how small actions repeated consistently over time lead to massive results. Imagine saving a small amount of money each day. At first, it doesn't seem like much, but over the course of a year, it adds up to a significant sum. The same is true for any goal, whether it's learning a new skill, improving your health, or building a business. It's not the big, dramatic actions that make the difference, it's the small steps you take consistently that create lasting change. Let's look at an example of how small improvements can lead to big wins. In 2010, British cycling was stuck in mediocrity. For nearly 100 years, British cyclists had won just a single gold medal at the Olympics, and had never won the Tour de France. But then, something changed. The new coach, Dave Brailsford, introduced a strategy he called the aggregation of marginal gains. The idea was simple: if you can improve every area of your performance by just 1%, those small gains will add up to a significant improvement over time. Brailsford and his team started making tiny changes across the board, adjusting the seats on bikes, improving athletes' sleep, even optimizing the cyclist's diet. Each change was small and seemingly insignificant on its own, but together, these 1% improvements transformed British cycling. Within just a few years, British cyclists won multiple gold medals, and in 2012, they won their first Tour de France. The lesson here is that even the smallest improvements, when compounded over time, can lead to extraordinary results. You don't need to transform your life overnight, you just need to improve by 1% today and build on that tomorrow. So how can you apply the principle of small steps to your own goals? The first step is to break your larger goal into smaller, bite-sized tasks. If your goal is to write a book, for example, instead of focusing on completing the entire manuscript, start with a manageable daily goal, like writing 200 words a day. If your goal is to get in shape, start with a 10-minute walk each day instead of trying to run a marathon. Once you've established a routine, you can gradually increase the intensity, but the important thing is to begin with something small and sustainable. Here are 3 strategies for taking small steps that lead to big wins. 1. Set micro goals. Micro goals are small, actionable tasks that are easy to complete and contribute to your larger objective. For example, if you want to launch a YouTube channel, don't try to produce your first video in one sitting. Instead, break it down. One day write a script, the next day record a short clip, another day edit. These tiny steps keep you moving forward without overwhelm. 2. Focus on consistency, not perfection. The goal isn't to take the perfect step, it's to take any step, consistently. Even if your effort is small or imperfect, it's progress. When you're consistent, you create a habit, and that habit builds momentum. Over time, those small, imperfect steps compound into big results. 3. Celebrate small wins. Every time you complete a small step, take a moment to celebrate. These small victories not only give you a sense of accomplishment, but also reinforce the habit of progress. It might seem trivial to celebrate writing 200 words or walking for 10 minutes, but these actions are what will carry you toward your larger goal. One of the greatest benefits of focusing on small steps is that it reduces overwhelm. When we focus on the enormity of our goals, it's easy to feel paralyzed. But when you break those goals into smaller tasks, each step becomes achievable. Suddenly, your massive goal doesn't seem so intimidating because you're only focused on the next step in front of you. This approach also builds confidence. Each small step proves to you that you're capable of making progress, even if it's slow. The more progress you make, the more confident you become in your ability to achieve your goal. Take your first small step today. Think of a big goal you've been putting off because it feels overwhelming. Now, break it down into small, manageable steps. What's one thing you can do today that will move you forward? Maybe it's making a 5-minute phone call, researching one small aspect of your goal, or writing a single paragraph. Whatever it is, commit to taking that step today. Once you've completed it, acknowledge the progress you've made and plan your next small step for tomorrow. The path to achieving big goals isn't paved with massive, heroic actions, it's built on the small, consistent steps you take every day. By focusing on what you can do today, you'll not only reduce overwhelm but also create the momentum that leads to long-term success. Remember, progress is progress, no matter how small. Just start with the first step, and the rest will follow. Chapter 6. Mastering the Art of Consistency. Consistency. It's the quiet, often overlooked force behind every success story. While motivation gets all the attention, consistency is what keeps you moving forward long after the excitement fades. It's the difference between people who reach their goals and those who stop midway. In this chapter, we're going to explore how consistency works, why it's crucial to long-term success, and how you can master the art of staying consistent, even when life gets in the way. The beauty of consistency is that you don't have to be the most talented, the most motivated, or the most driven person in the room. You just have to keep showing up. Why consistency is the key to success. We've all heard the saying, success doesn't happen overnight, but what does that really mean? It means that success is the result of repeated actions over time, not one-off efforts or bursts of inspiration. Consistency builds habits, and habits build results. Think about athletes, artists, or entrepreneurs. They didn't achieve their goals because they were always motivated or had some extraordinary stroke of luck. They achieved their goals because they worked at them day in and day out, even when they didn't feel like it. Showing up consistently builds momentum, and that momentum is what carries you through the tough days when motivation is nowhere to be found. Consistency compounds over time, much like interest in a bank account. The more you invest in showing up regularly, the greater the return on your efforts. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, is a perfect example of how consistency leads to long-term success. Clear didn't become a best-selling author overnight. In fact, for the first few years of his writing career, he was relatively unknown. But what Clear did do was write consistently. He committed to publishing 2 blog posts every week for years. Whether he felt like writing or not, whether the posts were perfect or not, he showed up and delivered content on a regular schedule. Slowly but surely, his audience grew. Over time, his small, consistent efforts led to massive success. Today, Atomic Habits is one of the most popular books in the personal development space, and Clear is recognized as an authority on building good habits. The lesson? You don't need to create a masterpiece every time. You just need to show up regularly. Consistency is what turns small actions into big results. The power of habits and systems. At the heart of consistency is the power of habits. When you can turn your desired actions into habits, you no longer need to rely on motivation or willpower to keep going. Habits take the decision-making out of the equation, they automate your progress. Take, for example, brushing your teeth. You don't wake up every morning and debate whether you'll brush your teeth. It's just something you do automatically because it's a habit. Now, imagine if the actions that led to your biggest goals, writing, exercising, learning, became just as automatic as brushing your teeth. That's the power of habits. The key to building these habits is creating systems that support consistency. Systems are the routines and environments that make it easier to show up regularly. If you rely on motivation alone, you'll eventually burn out. But if you have a system in place, you'll be able to keep going even when motivation is low. Here are some strategies for building systems that will help you stay consistent. 1. Start small. The most important part of consistency is just showing up. You don't need to do something huge every day, just make sure you're taking action, no matter how small. By starting small, you create a system that's easy to follow and hard to break. For example, if your goal is to exercise regularly, commit to doing just 5 minutes a day at first. Once the habit is established, you can increase the duration. 2. Make it easy. Remove as many barriers as possible that could stop you from being consistent. This could mean setting out your workout clothes the night before, preparing your meals in advance, or having a designated time for writing each day. The easier you make it to follow through, the more likely you are to stay consistent. 3. Track your progress. Keeping track of your progress is a great way to stay motivated and consistent. Whether it's checking off a habit tracker, writing in a journal, or using an app, seeing the chain of progress you've built will encourage you to keep going. Just like Jerry Seinfeld's "Don't Break the Chain" method, tracking your consistency helps you stay accountable. 4. Plan for setbacks. Life will inevitably throw obstacles in your way, but the key to consistency is knowing how to handle setbacks. Instead of letting one missed day turn into a downward spiral, plan for how you'll get back on track. One missed day doesn't ruin your progress. What matters is how quickly you can start again. One of the reasons consistency is so powerful is that it leads to long-term change. When you consistently take action, no matter how small, you create a new identity for yourself. You stop seeing yourself as someone who wants to achieve a goal and start seeing yourself as someone who is already working toward it. For example, if you consistently write 200 words a day, you no longer see yourself as someone who is trying to write a book, you see yourself as a writer. This shift in identity reinforces your actions and makes it easier to stay consistent over time. The more you show up, the more you believe in your ability to succeed, and that belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Think of a goal you've been struggling to achieve because of a lack of consistency. Now, break that goal into small, daily actions. What's the easiest, smallest step you can take today to start building consistency? Once you've identified your small step, create a system that will help you stick with it. Maybe it's setting a reminder on your phone, tracking your progress in a journal, or committing to a specific time each day. Whatever it is, start today, and focus on just showing up. Consistency is the backbone of long-term success. It's not about making grand gestures or achieving perfection, it's about showing up day after day, even when you don't feel like it. By mastering the art of consistency, you'll build habits that carry you through setbacks, keep you moving forward, and ultimately lead to the big wins you've been working toward. So, what small step will you take today to start building consistency in your life? Just start. Chapter 7. The Power of Accountability. We've all had that moment when we've set a goal, been excited to start, and made some progress, only to slowly lose steam over time. Life gets in the way, motivation fades, and suddenly that big goal is forgotten or pushed aside. But there's a secret weapon that can help keep you on track, even when your motivation wavers: accountability. Accountability is about having someone or something outside of yourself that holds you to your commitments. It's the difference between keeping your goals to yourself and sharing them with someone who will check in on your progress. In this chapter, we'll explore how accountability can dramatically increase your chances of success and provide you with tools to build accountability into your life. Accountability works for one simple reason. We're far more likely to follow through on something when we know someone else is watching. When you make a promise to yourself, it's easy to break it because no one else knows. But when you make a promise to someone else, you feel a greater sense of responsibility. Studies show that people who set goals and share them with an accountability partner are significantly more likely to achieve those goals than people who go it alone. Accountability provides external pressure, but in a positive way, it keeps you focused, motivated, and responsible for your progress. Accountability also creates a feedback loop. When you share your progress with someone, they can offer support, advice, or a fresh perspective that you may not have considered. It's not just about being checked on, it's about having someone in your corner who is invested in your success. One of the most common and effective forms of accountability is the buddy system. Whether it's for fitness, learning a new skill, or working on a creative project, having a buddy to check in with can make all the difference. Take the example of Tim Ferriss, author of The 4-Hour Workweek. When Ferriss was writing his book, he made a public commitment to his readers by blogging about his progress and setting deadlines. This public accountability kept him on track, because he knew his audience was expecting updates. Even though he was the one doing the writing, the accountability of his readers pushed him to meet his deadlines. You don't need a public platform to use this strategy. A simple partnership with a friend, colleague, or coach can create the same effect. The key is choosing someone who will hold you accountable and genuinely care about your progress. There are many ways to build accountability into your life, and it doesn't always have to involve another person. Let's break down some common forms of accountability. 1. Accountability partners. This is the classic buddy system, where two people commit to checking in with each other regularly. You could find a friend who is also working toward a goal, or you could hire a coach or mentor to guide you. Regular check-ins, whether daily or weekly, create a rhythm of progress and support. 2. Public accountability. Sharing your goals publicly, whether on social media, a blog, or with a group, creates external pressure to follow through. When other people know about your goals, you'll be more motivated to achieve them to avoid the discomfort of explaining why you didn't. The key is to share with people who will offer encouragement rather than criticism. 3. Group accountability. Joining a group with similar goals can be a powerful way to stay on track. Whether it's a mastermind group, a fitness class, or an online community, being part of a group creates a sense of camaraderie and shared responsibility. Groups often have scheduled check-ins, which provide structure and help you stay consistent. 4. Self-accountability. If you prefer to work solo, you can still create accountability for yourself. Tools like habit trackers, apps, and personal deadlines can serve as reminders to keep you on track. Journaling your progress is another way to hold yourself accountable. When you see your goals written down and track your progress, you'll feel more invested in seeing them through. So how do you incorporate accountability into your own life? The first step is deciding what kind of accountability works best for you. If you're someone who thrives on personal relationships, an accountability partner or group might be your best bet. If you prefer a more private approach, self-accountability tools can be just as effective. Once you've decided, here's how to set it up. 1. Set clear, specific goals. Accountability works best when you have a clear target. Instead of vague goals like I want to get healthier, set specific, measurable goals like I will walk 10,000 steps a day. The clearer your goals, the easier it will be for your accountability system to keep you on track. 2. Create a regular check-in schedule. Consistency is key. Whether you're working with an accountability partner or using self-accountability tools, set a schedule for checking in on your progress. Daily, weekly, or even bi-weekly check-ins will help you stay focused and keep momentum going. 3. Track your progress. Use a journal, an app, or a habit tracker to keep a record of your progress. This not only keeps you accountable but also gives you a sense of achievement as you see your progress accumulate over time. Celebrating small wins along the way will help keep you motivated. 4. Be honest about setbacks. Accountability isn't just about celebrating successes, it's also about acknowledging setbacks. When you have an accountability partner or group, be honest about where you're struggling. They can offer support, encouragement, or help you brainstorm solutions. If you're using self-accountability, reflect on why you hit a setback and adjust your approach accordingly. While accountability is often associated with pressure, it's important to remember that accountability doesn't have to be harsh or punitive. In fact, the most effective accountability is positive and supportive. The goal isn't to punish yourself or feel guilty for setbacks, it's to create a system of support that keeps you moving forward. This is where choosing the right accountability partner or group is crucial. You want people who will challenge you, but who will also celebrate your progress and encourage you when things get tough. Positive accountability helps you stay focused on your goals while maintaining a healthy mindset. Think about a goal you've been working on or avoiding and identify what type of accountability would help you stay on track. Then, reach out to a potential accountability partner or group and set up a regular check-in schedule. If you prefer self-accountability, choose a habit tracker or app to start monitoring your progress. Once you've set up your system, commit to your first check-in this week. Accountability starts the moment you share your goal or start tracking your progress, so just start. Accountability is one of the most powerful tools for staying on track and reaching your goals. Whether it's an accountability partner, a group, or a self-tracking system, having an external layer of responsibility makes it much harder to fall off course. It's not about adding pressure, it's about adding support. Find the system that works best for you and commit to it. Remember, accountability isn't about perfection, it's about progress. And with the right system in place, you'll find it much easier to stay consistent, even when motivation fades. Chapter 8. Celebrating progress, not perfection. We live in a world that often glorifies perfection. We see polished highlights on social media, the seemingly flawless accomplishments of others, and we start to believe that anything less than perfect isn't worth celebrating. But here's the truth: waiting for perfection is the fastest way to kill your progress. Real growth comes from appreciating the small wins, recognizing incremental improvements, and embracing progress, not perfection. In this chapter, we're going to break down why it's so important to celebrate your progress, no matter how small. You'll learn how this mindset shift will not only boost your motivation but also keep you moving forward, even when the path gets difficult. The key to long-term success isn't achieving perfection, it's recognizing and celebrating the journey along the way. The problem with perfectionism. Perfectionism can be paralyzing. It convinces you that unless you achieve flawless results, your efforts don't matter. This mindset can cause you to delay starting, quit early, or constantly feel like you're not doing enough. Perfectionism often sets an impossibly high standard, leading to frustration, procrastination, and burnout. It's a trap that keeps you stuck in a cycle of self-criticism, constantly focusing on what's not done or what could have been better. But here's the truth: perfection isn't real. It's an illusion. No one ever reaches perfection, and waiting for it will only delay your progress. Instead of striving for perfect outcomes, the focus should be on making progress and learning from every step, including the missteps. The world of tech startups has fully embraced the concept of celebrating progress over perfection. In Silicon Valley, there's a saying, launch early, launch often. Tech companies know that if they wait for a product to be perfect before launching, they'll never release anything. Instead, they focus on creating a minimum viable product MVP, a version that works but isn't perfect, and then continuously improve it based on feedback and real-world use. Think about companies like Instagram, Airbnb, or Uber. Their initial versions were simple, far from what we know today, but they were launched early, tested, and improved over time. Their success didn't come from waiting for the perfect product but from iterating, learning, and making continuous progress. The same principle applies to any goal you're working toward. You don't need to be perfect from the start. What matters is that you begin, make progress, and keep improving along the way. Why celebrating progress boosts motivation? Celebrating your progress, no matter how small, is crucial for keeping your motivation high. Every time you acknowledge a win, whether it's completing a single workout, writing a page of your book, or mastering a new skill, you trigger a release of dopamine in your brain. Dopamine is the feel-good neurotransmitter that creates a sense of reward and pleasure. The more you celebrate your progress, the more your brain associates those small wins with positive feelings, which motivates you to keep going. On the other hand, focusing only on what's left to achieve can leave you feeling overwhelmed and discouraged. If you're constantly looking at how far you have to go, rather than how far you've already come, you're setting yourself up for burnout. Recognizing and celebrating progress shifts your focus to the positive, making the journey toward your goal more enjoyable and sustainable. You might be wondering how to celebrate progress in a meaningful way. It doesn't have to involve grand gestures or big rewards. In fact, simple, regular acknowledgments of your progress can have the greatest impact. Here are a few ways you can start celebrating your small wins. 1. Keep a progress journal. Write down your accomplishments at the end of each day or week. They don't have to be huge. Maybe you made a difficult phone call, finished a challenging task, or took the first step toward a new habit. By reflecting on your progress, you'll build a sense of momentum and recognize how far you've come. 2. Create a visual progress tracker. Use a chart, app, or whiteboard to track your progress visually. Whether it's crossing off days on a calendar, filling in a progress bar, or adding checkmarks to a list, seeing your progress accumulate in a tangible way can be incredibly motivating. 3. Share your wins. Don't be afraid to share your progress with others. Whether it's with a friend, accountability partner, or online community, sharing your wins not only boosts your own motivation, but also inspires others to keep moving forward. 4. Reward yourself. When you hit a milestone, no matter how small, treat yourself to something that makes you happy. It could be as simple as enjoying a quiet moment, treating yourself to a favorite meal, or taking a break to do something you love. These small rewards reinforce the idea that progress is worth celebrating. 5. Shift your self-talk. Instead of focusing on what's not done, start congratulating yourself on what is. When you catch yourself thinking, "I still have so much left to do," shift your mindset to, "Look at how much I've already accomplished." This positive self-talk helps you stay motivated and reduces feelings of overwhelm. Small progress might not feel significant in the moment, but when you step back and look at the cumulative effect over time, it's massive. Think about learning a new language, saving money, or getting in shape. Each small effort, when done consistently, leads to exponential growth. The same applies to any goal, whether it's personal or professional. One of the most powerful ways to stay motivated is to regularly look back and reflect on your progress over time. If you've been keeping a journal, tracker, or log of your efforts, reviewing it can give you a sense of pride in how far you've come. This reflection will fuel your drive to keep pushing forward. Take a moment right now to reflect on your recent progress. What's one small win you can celebrate today? Maybe it's something you've accomplished this week, or even something you did today that moved you closer to your goal. Acknowledge that progress and, if possible, reward yourself for it. Now, think about how you can build a routine of celebrating your wins regularly. Will you keep a journal? Use a visual tracker? Share your progress with a friend? Commit to one way you'll start celebrating your progress every day or week. Perfection may be what we aim for, but progress is what we live in. Real growth doesn't come from perfect outcomes, it comes from the imperfect steps we take along the way. When you celebrate your progress, you build the confidence and motivation you need to keep going, no matter how challenging the journey becomes. Remember, small wins add up to big victories over time. So don't wait for everything to be perfect. Celebrate every step forward and keep moving. Just start, and then celebrate the progress. Final words. The beginning of your journey. As you turn the last page of this book, remember that this is not the end, it's the beginning. You've learned that perfection isn't required, fear doesn't need to hold you back, and progress is made one small, consistent step at a time. The journey ahead is yours to shape, and the first step is always the most important. But here's the truth, no matter how much knowledge or insight you've gained, none of it matters unless you act on it. The real magic happens when you take that first, imperfect step. When you embrace the messy, beautiful process of starting, stumbling, learning, and growing, that's when transformation occurs. So, what will you do today? What's the one small action you can take to move forward? It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be yours. The path to your dreams is waiting, but it starts with a single step. Just start. And from that small beginning, who knows what great things will unfold. Take care and be well.